Welcome to Emotional Ethics. My assistant here, Sheree Peterson, will be helping me with questions today. So let's get started on giving you the tools that you need to deal and spot toxic people. Toxic people are emotionally and mentally abusive and/or manipulative. They have learned early on what works to get them what they want, but in a negative, often cruel way. When toxic people see you receive success and accolades, they may begin to use tools such as humiliation, backstabbing, slander, dismissing your success, diminishing your expertise, and more. Toxic people may seek to gain control and power over others by sadistically finding happiness and success and getting others to be defensive or overreact or look stupid in public. Toxic people are those individuals who, by dint of their destructive behaviors and dysfunctional personal qualities, generate a serious and enduring poisonous effect on the individuals, families, and organizations, communities, and even entire societies they lead or associate with. Toxic people succeed and win when people either do what they say or do nothing to prevent it. This is called being passive. Now, we want to look into whether or not you are naturally a passive person or an aggressive person. An aggressive person is solely seeking after their needs being met, while a passive person is usually a people person, an emotionally intelligent person who is looking for a diplomatic solution, but maybe overly passive. Are you unwilling to stand up for your rights and ideas because you are afraid of the consequences from aggressive people? How does it feel to be controlled by someone like that? Do you find it difficult to say no to, disagree with, or walk away from aggressive or charming people? Do you have people in your life who are never happy, possibly even cruel, no matter how nice you are or how much you do for them? Do you go against your gut instinct in decision making because you are afraid of what other people's reactions will be? Do you believe people when they tell you it is your fault they abused you, talked down to you, or humiliated you? Are you in a relationship with someone who instantly becomes aggressive, retaliatory, blaming, charming, sexual in nature, demeaning and/or violent consistently when they don't get what they want from you and others? You can learn how to say no to and disagree with or walk away from toxic people without feeling guilty. Toxic people will never change until they are given consequences and boundaries. And we're going to talk about that later a little bit more so you understand how their brain works. You tell people what you will allow by doing nothing. And I love this quote by T.S. Eliot where he says, "If you haven't the strength to impose your terms upon life, you must accept the terms it offers you." Now we're going to delve into whether or not you might have some aggressive tendencies. Now sometimes people are aggressive in response to people, not necessarily aggressive in the way they approach people. And you might be an aggressive responder. So do you initiate confrontation with others or overreact when others push your buttons by being toxic, passive aggressive, and or not doing as expected? So we're going to ask you some questions to help you discern whether or not you have a little bit of aggression to work on. Do you find yourself being negative, lashing out at abusive people, making the problem worse, and liking yourself less in the process? Do you want to learn the skills to deal with abusive people without becoming abusive in return? Do you wish you could remain rational while dealing with a toxic person who seems to press all your hot buttons? Do you use sarcasm, name-calling, blaming, or talking down to people when you are frustrated or jealous? And I love this quote by Winston Churchill: "You can measure a man's character by the choices he makes under pressure." You can learn to remain calm during heated and tense moments. Now, people are either strongly intuitive or perceptive. Intuition is the ability to feel that something isn't right or is a good choice. Perception picks up on subtle body language, facial expression, patterns in behavior, and tone of voice, we have these for a reason. It's to help you to understand some subtle things about people. Now, the important thing to find out is you need to do some research on your personality to find out if you're a perceptive personality or an intuitive personality. And you can learn both of them, but knowing which one you are will help you to find your strength. Because communication breakdown, when you look at it down below on the graphic there, the words are not the most important part of communication. There's a nonverbal, like when I speak with my hands, how I look at you, how I look at other people, that's nonverbal. It could be, the way I hold myself, my body, how I walk. Tone is my tone of voice. Now you can say some words that might seem negative. Like, let's say I'm talking to my child, and I say, "You're a monster." That's negative. You could even say it in a sneering way, "You're a monster." But if you say it in a funny way, "You're such a little monster," it takes on a totally different meaning, right? So tone is extremely important. And so you need to pick up on those things so that you are understanding the subtle intentions of other people.
Christy,
yes,
we have a question. So what kinds of things can you do to learn and study people's tonality and perception, perceive their facial expressions, to better understand where they're coming from? You said that a lot of it's intuitive, but are there certain ways that we can practice discerning?
Yes, people who are perceptive, they can learn how to pay attention to this feeling in here. A lot of times perceptive people block their emotions, and they pay attention only to thinking processes. Okay. So they're picking up on things all around them, but they're not paying attention right here. They're so distracted by what they're visually paying attention to.
Okay.
So if they start paying attention to what is in here and trusting it, they can become more intuitive. And people who are more intuitive actually need to stop introverting into their heart and feelings and solely concentrating on that and start paying attention to what's around them.
Okay.
You have to be more active in the thing that you're not strong in and really work at it, but it is possible.
Okay, thank you.
Some of us have been lied to when we see or feel intuition or perception, or we have been told that we are wrong so that people can escape blame or consequences. They do things like, "No, that's not what I meant. You're seeing that all wrong." Some people have been taught not to trust their intuition and perception, which we have been given to help protect ourselves and those we care about. A lot of times this happens with controlling people. They want you to believe the lie so that you'll do what they ask. So a lot of times, toxic parents will do this with their kids. I just talked with a woman the other day who said she has this beautiful voice. She sings, just a powerhouse in our community. And she told me the other day that her stepmother told her all her life, "You shouldn't sing. You don't have a very good voice."
And just real quick, I've had a person in my life who is the same. And what would you do in a situation where someone says something like that to you?
Well, as a child, you believe what's told to you. Some children have the knack for being able to see right through that and fight it and go, I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Yeah, that would be me.
Be a little oppositional. I'm not going to believe that. But obedient children, or not that you weren't obedient,
no.
But children that are more people-pleasing and want to, they believe everything. They're just a little bit more trusting, can be affected by that more strongly. Usually it takes getting older and being able to see that and just, either start doing what you want and not care what they say, or just kind of standing up for yourself going, "You know what? Maybe I'm not a good singer, but I enjoy singing, so I'm going to do it."
No, that's great. That's a good answer. Yeah.
Many have been taught that it is wrong to discern a person as good or bad to be around, but it is a basic right to discern others' behavior and intentions as dangerous or good. to decide to allow them into your lives or not. When you talk to people who have had experience with serial killers or people that in the future they found out they were tricking them or fooling them, they said there was something there and they didn't trust it. So we need to learn to trust that stuff. So let's learn why people are toxic and how to spot it so you can protect yourself and your family and the people that you care about. Now, you're going to get some information in the mail. Some of this information is very small print that you're going to see on the screen. And that's for you to read over in the material that I'm going to be sending to you after you purchase the webinar. So at the end of that, you might even want to go to the end of that material that I give you. There's about 6 pages of questions. I created a survey to assess the people in your life. And you can go through that and kind of initial people's names next to the questions. And you'll be able to determine what level of toxicity these people are in, so that you're not going, okay, is there something wrong with me? You can finally go, okay, and it'll also give you the tools to start looking around and paying attention to discern those questions and trying to find out if that's actually what's going on. You might start to pick up on patterns that you didn't see before. What is a toxic person? Basically, a toxic person is disrespectful. Now, these are all ways of being specifically toxic, but really there's a disrespect and an ingratitude that is found generally in toxic people. Now, everyone has toxic moments, and I want to make that very clear when we're going through this, because sometimes people will go through this and they're like, oh, I did that one thing, or, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And you probably shouldn't have, but that doesn't generally mean that you're a toxic person. Consistency is the key to being a toxic person. It's a pattern that you use.
Really quick, going back to an earlier slide, you had certain stipulations or certain factors that made you a toxic person, those questions you were asking us. Is there a specific number of those that we have to have consistently?
When you fill out the questionnaire, there's a certain number of those questions per toxic section.
Okay.
And I would say that if you have like a fourth of them checked off, you've got somebody who has indicators of having that personality disorder or just a bad habit. Okay. Some of those are just bad habits. And you might have people that have, multiple sections filled just with a few things. But when you start seeing things being 50%, then it's becoming something that's more pervasive. It might be something that's actually turning into a personality disorder within their brain if it's not prevented and stopped. That's another reason why you need to learn these skills, because you might prevent a child or somebody from progressing worse into this behavior. Now, if you're going to the 75%, they've got it. That's it.
Okay.
They've got either the disorder, but that's for you to decide. Okay, as you go through those questions. A lot of times when you go through the DSM, which is the manual that psychologists use, it's very general. It's hard for people to understand what it looks like. So what I've done is taken that and broken it down into questions that are detailed. So that you can say, okay, yes or no, this person has this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so why do they use toxic behavior? They're getting something out of it with little to no consequence from enablers. Now, why do I have the cookie jars on the side? They are basically getting free grabs from your cookie jar, okay? There's no rules, there's no boundaries, they just take them whenever they want, which means they are doing whatever they want and getting what they want. So some of these you can read later in the material that I give you. But I'll read over some of them. Basically, no consequences for toxic behavior. This person has gotten away with it. Raised in a toxic home. They are getting something out of it, and it gives them a payoff for a high, which is totally confusing to people who are emotionally intelligent. They would rather just cut off their right arm than be mean to somebody. And so they don't understand why this is happening. Basically, this person has been conditioned, or they've been born with this personality that has not been given boundaries, or they've been conditioned in a home that's abusive. They get what they want for being toxic. So you can read on with those questions at a later time. So how to spot a toxic person? Picking up on your intuition and perception. And we talked a little bit about that already, but here are some detailed questions to help you to start paying attention to what's going on around you. So many times we get caught in the subjective, which means we're in the moment, we're getting caught into the laughter, we're getting caught into the moment of whatever's going on that's charged. A lot of toxic people often use charm and wit and things that to mask who they are or to mask their toxic behavior to make it funny. And then later on you kind of go, wow, that wasn't really appropriate, but I laughed at it.
Is that like one of those backhanded compliments that people give you, you know, through the back door, so to speak?
Yeah, there's teasing that's okay. Teasing is okay. Actually, that can create really good relationships with people.
Sure. Okay.
But once, you can tell there's a difference. There's just a cruelty to it.
Okay.
And if it's a pervasive pattern that you keep seeing and you're hearing about it from other people, you need to pay attention to that. Okay. So what do you feel when they walk into the room or when you look at them? I've had this, this is for intuitive people specifically, for what you feel when they walk into the room, and then what you look at, for perceptive people, you look at them and you kind of can pick up on something. I've had people that I was kind of, wow, what was that? When I first started realizing that there was something there. And it came out true with some people who just, as soon as I looked at them, it just a negative feeling right in here. I didn't even know them very well. And then later on, it found out that from other people that they were extremely difficult. What do you think about them when you first see them or look at them? Again, some of us have been trained. Okay, don't judge. Don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. But some people, they're showing their toxic markers, and if they look like a serial killer, then they are a serial killer. Not that they all do, but I mean, you have to pay attention to these things. Okay, how are they acting? How do you see them treating others? What are their verbal expressions and body language saying about them? What do they say to you and to others, and in what tone is it said most often? And I'm going to give you more examples later. How do they react to what others say? Do they like or need a lot of attention, and how do they get it? That's a big one. What are they like in private versus in public? And we're going to go into that as well. What do others have to say about them in general? Not that you have to trust what other people say about the person, but it kind of gives you, a little guidebook maybe to look into, because some people don't get along with somebody. I might get along with them great. It's a good fit for me, but it's not a good fit for them.
Right.
Okay. So that's just the way it is with certain situations. Some people are toxic to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so do they brag about getting even with other people? So often we kind of listen to these stories and we go, oh yeah, stick it to the man type of thing. And if you see this pervasively and consistently, or they talk about stories in their youth, I would trust that. Trust, people are telling you who they are a lot of the times. And you might be okay with who they are telling you who they are, right? But, really try to take the humor out of the story that they said and the charge out of it, and you kind of go, wow, that really wasn't appropriate to do to somebody. Yeah. Okay, so some people are like clouds. When they disappear, it's a brighter day.
That's a good quote.
Okay, so testing for toxicity. We're going to give you the skills to be able to start paying attention, is what I just told you to do. Now we're going to start proactively actually, trying to find clues. Now, I want to make sure, because somebody asked, now this seems a little, if you're doing this all the time in a relationship, it's a little manipulative. And so I agreed. I said, this is a test in the beginning. Now, if you have to keep doing this, then you're not going to, want to be in that relationship with that person if you have to keep testing to see if they're toxic. Also, you might not want to be with somebody who's consistently doing this stuff to manipulate you to see what your response is going to be. This is to get their intention. And your intention is to protect yourself, not to attack them and manipulate them. So I would suggest not continually doing this with people. It's a big turnoff. But when you're first starting a friendship or even, a relationship, or working with people at a business, try these tactics. Also for people who are trying to hire somebody, or you're giving somebody like a 3-month period to prove, which I highly suggest over just hiring somebody. Give them like a 3-month period to show you who they are. And try these tactics in order to find out what their reaction is. So often, people who are people pleasers or diplomatic, they never give this opportunity to people. And so when something happens later down the road, then they find out who the person is. Okay?
It's too late.
So you want to test the person out by calmly and respectively saying no to them at some point. What is their reaction? Try disagreeing with them. What is their reaction? I don't mean in a negative way either. Distance yourself from them, especially if you feel that something isn't right. What is their reaction? So do they glom onto you? They become, overly like intrusive and controlling? Or do they just not even care, like whatever? And are you okay with that? I mean, some people like somebody who gloms onto them, and is like, no, don't go, But I personally don't like that.
Is that an indicator that you're a toxic person if you like that sort of thing?
It can be. If you're somebody who's super controlling and you're just like, how dare you go do something without me?
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that again later when we talk about the 15 personalities.
Okay.
I have some stories about that. Like I said, that's why I'm giving you the option. What is their reaction, and are you okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, check yourself for toxicity in these ways also. Even if it is a defense, it is toxic and makes people not trust that you can handle being told no, being disagreed with, or being rejected without becoming vengeful and immature. So basically, if the person is becoming vengeful and immature, they're a toxic person.
Before we go on to the next slide, Christy, we have another question.
Okay.
Referring to letter A, where you test the person, and you covered this, but just to be sure. So if you are constantly having to test this person, is it a safe analysis that person is toxic?
Toxic toward you specifically. Again, we don't really need to, unless you're a leader, then you need to pay attention to who they're being toxic to, or a parent with a child, or whatever, teacher with students. But we're just talking about you right now. They might just be a toxic person to you. And also, what if they're just somebody, you realize it's somebody you don't like their reaction and it just doesn't fit with you? It doesn't, you're right, it doesn't necessarily have to be a toxic person. It can be just somebody that's not a good fit.
Okay.
And you have the right to go, it's not going to work. It takes about 3 months to see what a person is really like. It is especially important to observe them in frustrating or irritating situations. When you do, are you personally okay with their reaction? What do others think of that reaction? Let's take a look at some signs of toxic behavior to watch for. Sign number 1. This is a really good one to trust. When people, now these are models and actors, and I put down at the bottom of all these where you see actors that character traits are attributed to the media characters that they are playing, not the actors themselves. I want to make that clear because I don't know these people. They're probably really nice people. All right, so some of these looks you might think are fine, but in some of these scenes, the actor is portraying somebody who is sadistically happy that somebody is suffering. They're actually happy about it. Now, sadism, when you're a sadistic person, you enjoy seeing other people suffer, especially people that you're jealous of. Okay? And of all the pathological disorders out there, this is the one that's learned for sure. Some of them are learned, some of them are found in the brain, just through something wrong with the brain and how it works. And in this case, it's not. This is a learned trait from families. You're raised in a family where one-upmanship is rewarded, and being witty, it goes above being witty. It's actually being cruel. Who was being able to be witty and cruel and get even with somebody? It gets rewarded. Okay.
So that the consistent rewarding
yes
feeds this behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Okay.
All right, so sign 2, consistently negative, dismissive, or sarcastic verbal tones. So we all know House. Yeah. It's funny to watch on TV, but would you really want to deal with somebody who talks to you like that?
Absolutely not. No. Especially in his field.
Exactly. All right. So sign number 3, consistently disrespectful and selfish, still into adulthood. A lot of times these guys get away with, or girls, get away with being really funny and just charming or kind of laughing things off. Of course, people can be like that and they're not toxic, but just pay attention to see if it is. It's an indicator. So you've got, the picture down on the right-hand corner, you might, or it's your left-hand corner, I don't know which one it is for you. The one with the lollipop. These could be men or women. Basically, that's a man who's, not giving to his children. So a lot of times what happens, women and men marry somebody, and it's not until the children come along that they find out that this person is unwilling to be a protector and a provider or a nurturer and caregiver. And so this is that person. They are not mature enough yet to be a parent. They might be able to, but a lot of times this does not show up, sadly, until you have children. And that's a big part of the frustration. So even if you see them with children before, it's different because they're not paying for that child, okay? Yeah. They're not investing a ton of time with that child, right? So if somebody who likes going out dancing and partying all the time to a really large extent might have trouble becoming a mother or a father. Somebody who, they invest a lot of time in selfish things. This could be an indicator.
But this doesn't include, say, a hobby or something to that effect.
No.
Just if it's all-consuming,
right.
That's when you really need to be careful.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and trust this and what you're seeing, too.
Okay.
Like I said, it's for you to discern and just kind of check into.
Okay.
Sign number 4, consistently loud and obnoxious as an adult. Again, funny on TV, real life, not so much. But I do know, I have heard that he is extremely over-the-top funny for people in real life. So some people are fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas other people are not. Or I can take it for an hour and then I'm good. Go to his comedy show and then I'm done. Right.
Go read a book or something.
Right. So this personality probably might be really good with somebody who's introverted and really needs somebody to pull them out of their introversion. So sign number 5, consistently uses charm and sexuality to get what they want. Now this is a big sign for borderline disorder, especially if it's somebody who gets really mad at you for something that's really petty, and then you tell them, no, you're sticking to your guns. No, I'm not going to do that. And then they get really charming all of a sudden. It shifts almost in a bizarre way to being really seductive. Now, the actor to the right, I'm trying to remember his name right now, I can't. The actor to the right, he is really good at portraying this personality. Especially when he was in James Bond, the last James Bond movie.
Oh, really?
He was even trying to seduce James Bond, and it was.
I missed that one.
Yeah,
watch that now.
He's coming on to James Bond even.
Oh, wow.
So he's very good at playing that role. And so if you want to see what a borderline person is like, go watch that movie. Also, if you've watched the movie where Glenn Close.
The Devil Wears Prada?
No, no, the other one where she's, she tries to kill the guy that she has an affair with.
I know what one you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is classic borderline disorder.
Okay.
Right.
And just to kind of go back, you say they use charm, sexuality. What kind of sexuality attributes are we talking about
here? That's a good
here?
question because they come on strong. Okay. It's not just flirting.
Okay.
It's like they're like all over you, touching you, like, oh, come on.
Oh, okay.
It's like Marilyn Monroe status.
Oh,
wow. Okay. Yeah.
Very powerful. Okay then.
Yes.
Right then.
All right. Sign 6, consistently cruel and mean in private, but affectionate and kind in public. This is extremely hard to pick up on when you're dating somebody or just know them outside of the home or not for very long. They jolly everybody up, so you have no idea what they're like behind closed doors. But a sign to try and look for Now, this isn't always true, but it is a sign that I've seen it. And if it is true, it's always the sign.
Mm-hmm.
If they have family members with them, or you see people that they're consistently in relationship with, if that person is looks like this.
Oh, kind of sealed off.
Yeah, sealed off.
Mm-hmm.
Even sealed off from the person who's joking around with somebody. And they kind of go, yeah, and the person's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they know that person behind closed doors.
Right.
You don't know what just happened 5 minutes ago before they got to the event.
Oh, that's a good
And this person
point.
is still reacting.
Mm-hmm.
The children may still be reacting to what happened behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all jolly. You think, oh, wow, wow, that doesn't seem like a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, she's such a downer, or
Yeah.
or whatever. And you don't get why they're so happy and the kids are so just like flat affect, which is like almost no emotional reaction, can be
Yeah.
indicators that there's something else there behind closed doors.
Because ordinarily you would look at that person and say, well, they're just having a bad day or
Right, but like I said,
something.
consistent.
Okay.
You have to see consistency.
Okay.
So severe false public image, use mood consistently to manipulate,
Mm-hmm.
switching from positive to negative, but not in public,
Okay. Yeah.
behind closed doors, trying whatever mood will get them what they want. You'll
Mm-hmm.
see a flip back and forth. And it's not, there's bipolar disorder
Mm-hmm.
where somebody flips back and forth. That's something going on in the brain.
Right.
This is something different. This is manipulative. This can actually be signs of severe psychological disorders.
Okay.
Okay, where they're just antisocial personality disorder, and we'll talk about that more.
Okay.
Okay, so sign number 7, consistently aggressive, won't take no for an answer, harassment, sexual harassment also. I've been a victim of this, and I was able to handle the situation as soon as I found out at the organization I was working for that had children, there was a problem with a child that was reported. Then I reported what had happened, and you just need to be aware that even when you have facts, if you didn't come out straight with right in the beginning, they really question you. I had to tell them, I was able to handle it, but once the child, said something, I had to back her up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of men at work, all of a sudden shunning me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then come to find out when I went to go interview with the detective, and I kind of explained to him what was happening. And the detective said, oh no, we have really good facts that something happened and something happened in the past,
Wow.
because he never told this agency where he works for children that he worked for another agency with children, and they were looking into why.
So you
Okay,
need to-
so it's really important, even with
Mhm.
with subtle stuff. You need to go to your boss. This behavior is totally inappropriate. It's totally going over your boundaries.
Mhm.
Sign 8, consistently overreacts when disagreed with and constantly starts defensive arguments and humiliates others. This is anger management issues,
Mhm.
which can be helped with some of the stuff I'm going to teach. But if it's something in the brain, there's a prefrontal lobe problem, then there might be some medical ways of taking care of it. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
But you might just want to stay away from this person. Okay, so sign 9, consistently controlling, competitive, humiliates others, also takes credit for your success. Now, I have a really crazy story about this. I was basically an assistant to somebody over an organization, and I was over part of the organization that was trying to fix something that had to do with a youth group and get it up and running again. So I was handed all the tools for that, and I went in and started collaborating with people, networking, getting everybody excited about it. Within 6 months, we had it up and running. And we were asked to go into our boss's office to sit down and just kind of like not a one-on-one, two-on-one. But anyways, in that meeting, he looked at us and said, "Wow, I'm just amazed that you were able to get this up and running in 6 months."
Wow.
And I don't need compliment. The compliment to me is seeing it up and running. That's where I get the joy from it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't really need a compliment, but it was nice to get.
Yeah.
But right there in that moment, the woman who was over me, and I have a lot of stories about her, but at that very moment, she looked him straight in the face and said, "I knew I could do it."
Wow.
just like that. I knew I could do it. And I just kind of like, I just kind of sat back like, oh, okay.
Because
wow, all right. And the leader
Yeah.
kind of looked at me because I think he was picking up on how strange that was, because he knew that she had nothing to do with that. She was good at what she was doing in her part of the organization. She really was. But she was, doing a power grab there, taking credit for something that I had worked on so blatantly. I was in shock, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. Sign 10, consistently forceful and physically controlling. Blocks, pushes, shoves, and grabs. So they don't really hit. These are precursors. If you have this happening to you, you need to pay attention to this. This is going to get worse, okay? If boundaries aren't set. But personally, this is a big sign of a bad relational fit, okay?
Clearly.
Okay. All right, sign 11, consistently puts others down and never gives compliments. Now, this is something that somebody might just have a bad habit of, or they can use this as a manipulative tool because they've found that it works with you. Sign 12, consistently dismisses others' ideas and talks over them, including shunning and slander. When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. Okay, this is pretty self-explanatory. Sign number 13, consistently humiliates and embarrasses people in public, making others look or feel stupid to look smarter than them. Again, this is part of that sadistic family growing up kind of thing. Not quite too sadistic, but still, there's this constant like one-upmanship for who can be funnier, who can slam each other the most, right? Which is okay when you're having fun with it, but if it's consistent, it can become a problem.
Yes.
Okay, so Gandhi said, it has always been a mystery to me how men can feel themselves honored by the humiliation of their fellow beings. And this is somebody who had expertise on that subject. Sign number 14, consistently scares people or puts them in danger. I have a really good story for this. Okay, so these little acronyms on the bottom: oppositional defiant disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and intermittent explosive disorder.
Wow.
Yes. Now, ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, people use this all the time. They're like, oh, he must be antisocial. This is somebody that they think is, not personable, doesn't like being around people, right? It actually doesn't mean that.
Oh, okay.
It means anti-rules, antisocial rules.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
So when somebody says antisocial personality disorder, it's somebody who is willing to do anything to get what they want. These are the people that are in jail.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It begins with oppositional defiant disorder when they're young. And if it doesn't have brakes put on it, or they don't learn how to establish their own boundaries and pick up on their own problem of being defensive and oppositional, it can turn into antisocial personality disorder and intermittent explosive disorder.
What is intermittent explosive disorder?
That is where just without cause they explode.
Oh.
Emotionally. Okay. Like you were calm with them, completely calm with them, and they just,
wow.
It could be something that's a trigger. They might be transferring something from your mother, from your father, onto you. Who knows, right? But it's not you. But people pleasers, what did I do wrong?
Oh, okay.
What did I do?
Yeah.
So if they get in a relationship with somebody who's like that, it's all over.
Oh, wow.
Until that person figures it out, and then you're gonna have a hard time backing out of that relationship because they're getting free grabs from the cookie jar. Right. You're taking that cookie jar away, you're going to get an explosion of temper tantrum.
Wow.
Okay? So I have a story about this. So drivers who, ask them to slow down, they don't, and they, go faster. ODD, oppositional defiant. Okay. A lot of them are in accidents. Look for that. People who, when you're in the car, if you're texting the car, go ahead. It's your life.
Yeah.
But you're putting a bullet to my head if you're doing it when I'm in the car and my kids are in the car.
Right.
So if you're doing that and I ask you to stop and you still keep doing it, you've got a disorder.
Okay.
Okay. You've got these explosive people in the car, It's one thing to get upset, but this is a little bit overboard. They're driving toward you.
Yeah.
They can't let go of whatever happened, just laugh it off or whatever. Also, another indicator is this. I watched this happen. So the driver is busy reading some material while driving, and starts veering off the road
Oh my gosh.
on the freeway, 80 miles an hour, okay? And the passenger says, can you please put down the paper, you're going to veer off the road. And the driver says, well, why didn't you grab the steering wheel?
Are you kidding? Okay.
This is a strong indicator
Yeah, but don't ever get in the
of
car with
these
him again.
disorders, okay? Just unable to take responsibility or take any direction at all. Wasn't taking responsibility for being inappropriate with their driving and putting people's lives in danger.
Yeah.
Blaming the other person for not, you're supposed to, just ridiculous. Okay, sign 15, consistently uses hitting, choking, and violence with anger to get what they want. This is where it escalates. This is when, emotional abuse, mental abuse, tip the scales over into physical abuse. Now, this person who's getting choked, that's a real picture from a woman who you might have seen. She's on TV, she does cooking shows, and her elderly husband started choking her in a restaurant. And we have, there's pictures of her leaving the scene, really distressed.
Wow.
But the police were called by the attendants, and this is snapped by, somebody nearby, thankfully.
Good.
And and when the police came, he said, "Oh, we were just joking around."
Oh, so they play it off like it's not a really
Right,
big
but
deal.
we have pictures of her being distressed, fleeing the scene.
Yeah.
Right. So thankfully, people took pictures of this stuff to back it up. All right, what toxic people really are. Doesn't it all make sense now? So often we let these dictator-type personalities take over, and they're just little kids. They're just little kids still throwing temper tantrums and finding the people that it works on and getting what they want somehow, some way.
So the key here is to not become the person that they latch on to.
Yes.
You set those boundaries, you don't allow them to do that.
Right, you test for the toxicity. You find out by doing proactive steps to find out what this person's really like under stress.
Okay.
So many people, you're like, you don't want to put stressors on somebody, you want to be nice, right?
Yeah.
But a little bit of stressors gets you to see who they really are under pressure, how they're going to be with their kids when they're frustrated, right?
Yeah.
Okay, or with employees. Okay, so this is what they really are. And I also give tips for if you're in a relationship, either business or professional or personal, what you can do to either reshape the relationship or to walk away after you've tried everything without feeling guilt. All right, so Jackie Chan. This is somebody who didn't stick up for himself. He said, I allowed myself to be bullied because I was scared and didn't know how to defend myself. I was bullied until I prevented a new student from being bullied. By standing up for him, I learned to stand up for myself.
That's good.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So often we stand up for other people and our children, but we don't stand up for ourselves. And that's the tools that I want to give you. And I want you to also understand that sometimes when you start standing up for yourself, there's like this reaction formation where you go from passive to aggressive. And that's just part of the process of when you finally realize patterns that people are pulling on you, you can get pretty upset. So you're going to have to learn how to yourself to maybe manage that, right? And you might in the beginning get upset at yourself for being too passive each time or too aggressive. And that's just the process of learning, training your brain to spot these things and pick up on them quickly, and then also be able to be diplomatic while you're doing it. That's hard. It's not easy if you're not used to doing it. Often it is not the toxic person who makes us feel horrible, but our own inability to know what to do in that shocking moment of being hurt and manipulated. You beat yourself up, right? The problem is often that you need to hide your distress and or not retaliate to remain professional. So how do you remain under control, yet set boundaries on people's toxic behavior so you don't look like a doormat? Basic assertive steps. Now, if you're severely passive, these are really good steps for you to start writing down, journaling over things that have happened, okay? A lot of times you need to practice in your mind or write down what should have happened And then your brain starts to remember those things the next time it happens. Because believe me, toxic people will give you another chance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they will. They're good at
that. to practice this. All right? So you need to say what you see, say how you feel, say what you want, and then walk away and keep yourself safe in some cases. You define the rules. These are the rules for being in a relationship with me. That's what you need to say to yourself. These are the rules and boundaries for being in a relationship with me, which means you also need to define the consequences for stepping over those rules. Oprah Winfrey, you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. So many times, people pleasers come to the table, or diplomatic people, they come to the table already discounting what they wanted in their head. Oh, they won't want that, and they won't agree with that, and they're going to get upset if they do that. And they come to the table with something that's not even what they want.
Oh.
Okay? Mm-hmm. We need to stop doing that and stop walking on eggshells. Mm-hmm. All right? Unless, if this is a dangerous person, you need to be in a safe place when you, and we're going to discuss that when you set these boundaries. Okay? Mm-hmm. Either on the phone or just totally away from them. Mm-hmm. All right? When you set these boundaries. I don't know the relationship. That's why you need to test for it to see if they're going to easily overreact and get physical. That's when you need to go get counseling instead and follow their tips for handling this, going to the police maybe, going to an agency that helps people, victims of violence. I'm on the board of AFW, Alliance for Family Wellness, in Corona, and they do that for free. They help victims of violence in our area. So there's places like that wherever you are, most likely.
Wow, okay.
So you also need to write these things down if you're not used to doing these things after you have a confrontation with somebody. I think this about what happened. I feel this from what happened. This helps helps the intuitive person to start paying attention to what they're thinking. Mm-hmm. The feeling, I feel this, gets the perceptive person who's paying attention and thinking about what's happening to start paying attention to this.
Right.
These are tools that psychologists use to help people who are lower functioning in these areas. Okay. I believe this is wrong because I want this. Very powerful. Mm-hmm. So many people have been trained you're not allowed to ask for what you want. They've discounted it, like I've said already, when they've come forward and set boundaries or whatever. Mm-hmm. Talk to people in roadblocks to requested change. Now, these are different ways that people will set roadblocks to you setting boundaries or trying to move forward with change. So we've got the police cars stacked up. That's government. Government can be very bureaucratic and stubborn. Mm-hmm. We've found that even when you vote for something, government agencies try to shut down what the people have voted for,
That's
right?
True, yes.
Then on the bottom there you have the sheep. That is the cult. No, I'm just kidding. Cult mentality. It can be for some people, actually. No, that's the cliques. People that are the groups that are in a groupthink process, mm-hmm. unwilling to let you succeed. Okay. Unwilling to let you change something. All right, and then the tree, you're probably thinking, what is that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the tree is that person, you don't even know who it is maybe, but it's somebody who's going around slandering you or talking bad about what you're trying to do, uh-huh. and they're changing other people's minds through lying or slander or whatever, and they're cutting you off. They've chopped the tree down and they ran, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. You know, they're like the Robin Hood, you know, or they think they are. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's blocked you, you know, and you don't even know who did it, right? Sometimes. Right. All right, and this other one, that's all out war. Yeah. That's all out war. You know, you shall not pass, but in a negative way. Mm-hmm. When you ask them to do something or address their negative or poor behavior, do you consistently get caught in a maze of blame, accusations, getting off topic? It's a really good one mm-hmm. that they use. Arguing over who said what and how, emotional overreaction, extreme defensiveness, refusal and denial, proof of your hypocrisy taken out of context. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you did this, which can often be be fought with this other, your few 10% mistakes to condone their 90% failure. When you point that out to them, every single time they try to say, you're being a hypocrite because you did it this time, you go, I did it once. You do it like every 90% of the time, and I know it's wrong, and I'm trying to stop. As soon as you say that, as soon as you own that, they have nothing. So oh, she owned it. And she just said she knows it needs to be changed. So they have there's no battle there anymore.
So in cases like that, because I'm one of those people that has a really hard time coming up with things to say when I'm being attacked.
Yes,
by
we're going to go through that.
You are? Okay,
yes,
good. So
yes.
That's coming. All right.
Because the fog comes over you. You can feel the fog. You're like, wait a minute, what just happened? They're taking you through this maze, right? So they're using a lot of lies too. They're lying about what their intention was. They're lying about what they said. I didn't say it that way. Things like that. So toxic people will do anything to avoid responsibility and/or consequences, and they will use whatever worked before.
Okay.
So if you've set up a pattern with this person and it keeps working, guess what? You're taking the cookie jar away, and they're going to have a temper tantrum. Okay. So the blame game. Toxic people will tell you they treated you badly because you made a mistake. No one has the right to be treated badly for making a mistake. You can give consequences and boundaries, but without treating others badly or toxically. If they don't, here's the kicker, if they don't like you or don't want to be around you, they can leave instead of hurting you.
Absolutely.
Right?
I had a friend who used to tell me, I just never worry about it because I'll tell you exactly what I think. And that's all well and good, but there's a tactful way of doing that. There's
Not
a nice
only that,
way of doing that.
A lot of people will say, I'm just telling the truth. They're telling the negative truth.
Right.
All
okay,
the time.
That's a good point.
They're not telling the positive truth. So you can bring that up with them.
Okay.
Okay, you're telling the negative truth, but you're never giving compliments or saying anything that is good about me.
That's good.
Or or that person.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the comments that they say, but the ones that I've underlined are the ones that really, really show up.
Why aren't you grabbing the steering wheel?
Yeah, that's the one I told you about. She thinks she is so smart. Well, I showed her. Okay, that's an indicator that you need to watch out for somebody who's going to do that to you. Okay, believe people when they tell you who they are, right? Tactics and strategies against toxic people. There are steps to take if you are already in a relationship with a toxic person you cannot break free from completely. You are not trying to change these people. You are only telling them the rules for how they will treat you or not treat you if they want to be in a relationship with you. You have that right. You have that right to say, I don't want to be touched that way. I don't want to be talked to that way. If somebody says, well, you're being too sensitive, you're like, I am, so maybe I'm too sensitive for you.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Right?
Yes, yeah.
Own it. A lot of times when you become defensive against something that's the truth, really, then they really have a field day.
Oh, yes.
Because then they call you a liar and they just start in on you. What your toxic people need to know. Now, remember, toxic people are conditioned to get what they want by doing this behavior. They are not picking up on what your boundaries are if you're not telling them. They will try to get whatever they want. It's almost like they don't have the prefrontal lobe area telling them this is inappropriate to do to somebody, okay?
Yeah.
You have to, it comes from outside rules. That's why these people are in jail. Laws and rules have to confine them, and they'll try to find loopholes through them, believe me. But you have to tell them. So what your rules and boundaries are, what the consequences are for breaking those rules, that you can change your rules and boundaries at any time.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
And take a look at the 3 rings on there. I want you to figure out with a person, think of a person that you really struggle being around. And you kind of feel pressured to be around them because it might be a family member, might be somebody you work with, might be, whatever. And you get to decide how close together those rings go or how far apart they go on the boundary with them, where you're with them, because some people are more toxic in certain groups than other groups or places than other places. So maybe you need to decide where you're going to be with them. Maybe not at your house, because all they do is talk about how that color doesn't match that. Why did you do that? Yeah. Let's have that meeting at your house. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and time boundary. You get to, okay, I only have an hour. And well, what do you have to do? I've got other stuff I need to get done.
So you don't go into specifics with them?
Oh, no.
Okay. That gives them an open.
And don't lie, because man, they will ask other people.
Oh, you can bet on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So healthy boundaries over there on the other side. Examples of unhealthy boundaries. Some families are enmeshed, which means there's low boundaries, okay? And some people are more rigid. So a good movie is My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh, yeah.
You've got his family that's completely, it's totally boundaries. And then you've got the limited boundaries from him. He walks in, he's like part of the family instantly.
Yeah,
Just like, oh, come in, big hugs everywhere, So it's important, though, to be the one, that's over there that has some boundaries, but still lets people in. So pay attention to what your family's like, what you are like. Also, you might be in a family where there's a lot of extroverts, you're more introverted, so they're always like, what's wrong with you? And vice versa. Gosh, she's just so loud, and just, talkative with everybody. I have a son who's extremely social. It's very scary when he was younger. He's getting older, so it's not as scary. But no, you can't go home with that family.
Yeah, that's a problem, you see.
Right. So you might be the contrary of what you've been raised in. And I hope this gives you validation that, hey, this is who I am. And you guys are going to have to deal with it. I have more boundaries than you, or I'm just a little bit more friendlier than you. Okay?
That's a good way of putting that. Yeah.
Do you have boundaries is the question. The confidence to politely let the people around you know that they need to respect the rules. How do we go about doing that? What respectful and mature tactics and strategies can you use? What incentive do they have to do as you ask? Right?
Yes, those are
leverage.
Some questions. Absolutely.
Yeah, you need leverage. I was talking with somebody the other day. She was talking about her mother and how she's actually gone to counseling with her mother and kind of worked out, how to just remove herself into her room. She's an adult and she's looking forward to moving out. But, she kind of felt like, well, that's just the way she is. She's not going to change. And I said, you know what? Actually, there are some tools to help fix that problem if the person is willing to. But you need leverage. I said, you have to be outside the home for that to happen.
Yes.
And when she comes at you like, well, you never come to visit me. Well, Mom, if you treat me like that, I don't really want to be around you. Or ask a question so it's not about you.
Right.
Why would I want to be around someone who treats me like this, and explain? Okay. So she needs to learn the rules if she wants to be around you.
And then the leverage would be time with
Right.
this person.
You have leverage now because you're not in the house.
Right.
The mother now has leverage to say, well, fine, you're out of here if you don't do as I say.
Right.
Right.
At this point, yeah.
Which is good leverage for somebody who's being a deadbeat child.
Yeah, that's true.
But with somebody manipulating their intention is, how dare you tell me that I'm being mean to you? How dare you say it's mean of you to say that I'm mean. That's like saying, the cops have no right to stop anybody from doing anything. That's just mean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think she's also going to get leverage when she has children. If you want us to come over, you got to treat me respectfully because you're teaching my children to be disrespectful to me, and I can't have that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
Before we move on, if you are in a physically abusive or violent relationship, has the person been violent with others or shown physical force or frightened you in some way when not getting what they want? If so, then please make sure you are in a safe place and with others who can protect you when setting any of the following boundaries. If violent in the past, do not use these tactics and strategies until you have removed yourself from their presence or sought help from police and/or counselors. Step 1, silent detachment. When someone tries to control you with toxic behavior, sometimes all that is needed is a moment of detached silence for them to understand that you won't interact with them until if they are toxic. Use a moment of silence to calm yourself down and come up with a calm, rational response. Silence should not be used to manipulate, get your way or what you want, pout, it psychologically abuses people. Long-term silence treatment for days is actually used by, it's a brainwashing technique. It's severely damaging, even more than physical abuse. And don't do it to enact vengeance. So silence speaks when words can't. So I have an incident with this. Sitting back in silence. So I was with this group of men and women, husbands and wives, talking. I didn't really know a lot of the spouses. And so I'm sitting there with this group, we're eating ice cream, and all of a sudden I realize that the women are all toxic. And they start talking about some things that they've done to their kids that just started really hurting me.
Wow.
Just hurting me, but they said it in a funny way, so people were laughing. And so I just kind of the first story was kind of funny, and then I kind of realized what was going on, and I just kind of sat back and I just started eating my ice cream and kind of staring at my ice cream instead. Well, one person in the group picked up on what was happening, not a toxic person, and immediately changed the subject.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay.
Told a funny story. It wasn't about hurting people.
Good.
It was actually it was a long story. It was pretty funny, and had everybody laughing. It changed the subject, okay? So I don't think the toxic people picked up on it, but this person did, and I think I almost taught them a lesson in that moment. They seemed to be going, wow, why did she do that? What just happened? Now, another time this happened, I was with I was not a counselor, but
an advisor? Or?
Yeah, an advisor to somebody, and the meetings kept getting railroaded by this other advisor. And I was able to pick up on it because I had learned this from being a leader before when somebody else pointed it out to me. And sometimes when you're a leader and you're just like, oh, just bring me good ideas, and you don't realize that somebody's shutting down somebody else constantly or absorbing all the attention and kind of dismissing other people, and just, it's almost like they're eating all the food at the table. They're just devouring all the attention. And so again, after several meetings like this, and I would, just keep trying to add input, and it was just consistently getting, oh, well, yeah, but that won't work because of that, which is fine when you're in a think tank and you might go, well, what about this, what about that? She was consistently doing it. Every idea, even the good ones, okay?
Wow.
So it was interesting that when I sat back from the table again, just sat back and just kind of stopped interacting completely. And just listening to her go on and on about her personal stories. It got off topic. And this leader had not learned the skills to bring it back on topic yet. And I knew that. Just by sitting back, bing, she looks at me. She gets just nonverbal behavior. She's like, all right, okay, so let's move forward. Okay. And so she just moved, she just got it. It clicked for her when I did that. These are people who can pick up on these subtle things. They're perceptive, they're picking up, and they're intuitive, but they're also introspective. They're looking inward and going, why did that happen? And, oh, that's why. Okay. And so right after the meeting, she's like, we're going to have lunch. And we talked, and I didn't even bring it up because I don't want to be somebody like, she's always doing this, and she's always doing that.
Exactly.
So basically, I just got in the car and was looking out the window. She's like, so what was that all about? And so we just kind of, didn't bag on the person, but just kind of talked about what happened. And she started seeing patterns of it in other parts of her life.
Wow.
And with other people. Yeah.
Good.
Powerful nonverbal behavior. Okay, so commands and tone. Now, on these next 3 steps, you can choose to go backwards or forwards. It's up to you. Some people are not comfortable or in a toxic relationship that is severe. This is for somebody who is consistently belligerent and in your face, okay? You're going to almost become like a police officer. Police officers don't say please, do they?
No,
she works
they
with
don't.
the police a lot.
They don't. They don't ask you nicely. You will do what they ask. Yes.
They command. They've been taught to do that, right?
Yes.
Yes. And so basically, you state commands calmly, firmly, and without saying please. You don't want to come across as begging or as toxic in return. So a lot of times toxic people, when you say, please stop doing that, they now see you below, you are begging, right? So many toxic people see the word please as you begging them. In their mind, it says that they are on top and you're on the bottom. You want to make it clear that they are acting immaturely and that you are in the mature parental role. Not above them necessarily, just teaching them, parenting them for how to treat you, okay? 10% of conflicts are due to difference in opinion. 90% is due to wrong tone of voice. So you need to be very careful. You need to practice this if you're if you're overreacting in return.
Is it safe to say that when you ask someone who is toxic, please, as if you're begging them, is it safe to say that you're more or less giving them permission to continue to treat them that way because you're asking them, you're not commanding them to?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
Okay.
So for maybe somebody that'll help you to understand how that's coming across to them. So you need to be, we'll talk about how to remain calm. I have change management tips for that are actually kind of fun, so it makes it easier for you to remember. So stop addressing the content and address the tone. This is so key for people. You get caught in that maze that we talked about, right? You get caught in that fog. You start defending yourself. You're feeling attacked, so you start attacking back. Or you just kind of like, or you shrink back and you just, don't even deal with it. You walk on eggshells for the rest of your life. So what I tell people is, don't address the content of the conversation. You don't say, but, or what about this? Do not talk down to me. Okay, I have a list coming up that gives you key things to say to people that have worked and continue to work to help them to understand. In that moment, you have to learn to find that moment when all of a sudden the tone shifted to some type of negative, almost talking down to you. And you might have been used to that growing up in a family of that, so you're not aware that that's not appropriate.
Right.
Okay?
You don't
it's
see that
not.
red flag. Yeah.
Okay? You're going to start to pick up maybe on the patronizing tone that people, maybe bosses, leaders might have, or people around you. And you don't always have to go, don't take that tone with me.
Right.
But in cases of extreme belligerence and they're in your face and being very disrespectful and ruining your reputation, you need to address the tone. Which means don't address what they are saying, address how they are saying it. Don't get caught up in the toxic dialogue or confrontation. What tone are they using? Is it immature, disrespectful, etc.? Do they talk down to you? Do not allow the conversation to continue. Use commands in a firm but calm tone without being toxic in return. Using this step will be uncomfortable for you and for them if this is not a normal thing. The goal is not to give in, letting them know that you mean what you're saying and expect change. Fears will run through your head, but guess what? They're not maybe showing it, but fears are also running through their head. They're almost like an attacked dog who's afraid. What's the thing behind an attacked dog? Fear. That's what's happening. There's a fear. They're trying to use whatever works or worked in the past with you to get you to corroborate and do what they want. If you are valuable to them, they will respect your rules for how you will be treated and change. I've seen it happen. I will not stay silent so that you can stay comfortable. Okay? Simple commands. Now, the ones I've underlined, again, are extremely important. I put there, it says use number 1 and number 2 when they're in tantrum mode, especially. They aren't ready for polite questions or introspective questions while in this state. Do not talk down to me. I'll talk to you when you can talk respectfully to me. And then if they are hounding you, following you, you need to walk away, tell them, I'm going to leave for a little bit, and just try to, if there's other issues with that, if you have somebody who's following you, I would seek out professional help. If they're hunting you down, stand behind your car, won't let you leave, to just take a break from them. I would get professional help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these things are silver bullets. They seem to work. They kind of go, oh wow, so you're catching, but you have to catch them at that moment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's uncomfortable because other people are around. Right. Now, if you can do it in private and they go, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have talked down to you. But usually with a toxic person in the beginning, they go, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Because they actually don't, a lot of the times. They don't know what they did. They've never had they aren't introspective. They aren't going, oh, what did I do to make that happen? They're like, that person was like, so annoying. So I had the right to treat them like that. So you have to catch them at that moment when the tone becomes negative. Okay. Side effects of toxic. If they back down and respect your request, that's great. But depending on level of toxicity, you need to be aware of possible reactions with commands. If you are dealing with an angry or violent person, are you in a safe place or on the phone where you can get, where they can't get to you? 2, if you are dealing with a manipulative person, they will then turn to charm, affection, and humor to butter you up to make your unhappiness go away, or try to blame you for your unhappiness at being treated disrespectfully. Very interesting how they think.
Yeah, it is in that cyclical type of thing. I've dealt with people like that as well. And it's
wow.
bizarre. I just don't think that way.
How do I get you to unravel it? The best thing to do, address the tone immediately, consistently. It will click for them eventually. If it doesn't, they need psychological help.
Okay. How do you recommend that?
Because they might go back and forth. They're learning, it's change management for them too, right?
Yeah,
this is like whiplash. This isn't even a choice that they made, right?
Right, yeah.
So, there's a certain amount of patience you have to have with it, on their end.
All right.
If dealing with a control freak, they will become angry and blaming. If dealing with a sadistic person, they will mock you and call you weak.
Yeah.
That's when you just say, yeah, maybe I am. Maybe you need to be around a stronger person. Okay. Remember, they are used to having free grabs at your cookie jar. They are getting something from treating you badly, especially sadistic people. I've actually seen this. I need to talk about this. So I walk into this meeting and there's people being placed in leadership positions. They're kind of like, yay, And this specific person I'd never met stands up and just is looking at the crowd. Like, like this. And I'm like, holy cow, that's not real. That has to be like a joke, right? That cannot be real. And I'm watching sadism right in front of me, right? Yeah. Just look at me, I'm on top.
Wow.
You're below, okay? And at first I'm like, wow, I don't want to judge, And then over the years, I started getting story after story of just horrible sadistic behavior from this person. And so I thought, I'm going to try to get along with this person. And just one after the other just humiliated me in public.
Wow.
Horribly. Okay. Especially if I became successful at anything or did something well or got a compliment. Wow, I was slammed in some way publicly.
Wow.
It hurt really bad. But then I learned that it wasn't me. And I had to learn to not let that hurt me and realize that what they were doing was wrong. If dealing with the sadistic person, they will mock you and call you weak, but also enjoy it.
Wow.
They will revert into a 3-year-old and throw a tantrum, become cruel, or use charm when the cookie jar is taken away. Don't get what they want. Toxic spouse, do not talk down to me. This has worked with several people dealing with a toxic spouse. Do not talk down to me. And you're going to get you might get a recurring thing happen where this person is learning the steps, they're learning how to treat you, things are going fine, and all of a sudden some stressor comes on, and all of a sudden they become malevolent or dark. And you can pick up on it even faster now because it's not a consistent barrage, right? So you've been happy, things are going good. Instantly, you have to be prepared with this comment, and you can. Yeah. You just basically, as they do that, do not talk down to me. And it's even more effective because in that moment they go, whoa, you're right, I should not have talked to you in that tone. They start to learn it, right?
That's good.
Again, if they don't, after 3 months and 6 months, I would get help.
Okay.
Step 3, requests. Now this is somebody who might not be as severely toxic, or you're moving from step 1 to step 2 to step 3.
Oh, okay.
All right. Using requests when the person is willing to listen. Commands are for communicating how you don't want to be treated. Requests are for telling someone how you expect them to treat you if they want to be in a relationship with you or work with you. Okay, so it's like, it's the next step of saying, will you please treat me this way? Okay. Please give compliments and praise more often to me and other people. Tell us what we are doing right, or at least compliment us for trying or improving. This is a big problem for toxic people. This is the number one problem. They don't appreciate people, or if they do, if other people appreciate them, they're jealous. They also come in with lists. They don't often think of, like hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
They come in and just like barrage you with lists. It's all about tasks. And we'll talk about that later. They're kind of like joyless task people. There's no happiness even in the tasks that they're accomplishing.
Yes.
It's just all about, control and just this fight to constantly be over people. So this is something that they have to learn and struggle with. Number 11 is the number one that works, the silver bullet again. Please correct people kindly. Please teach that person kindly. So you can go through these on the information that I emailed to you. This was a really good one for somebody who, a sibling that wasn't really super toxic. In fact, this picture is probably a little extreme for how he was acting on the phone, so the best I could find. So, so a brother and sister talking on the phone, adult brother and sister, mind you, and the brother's just on the phone hounding her, going, you should be doing this, you're supposed to be doing that, what are you doing? And just, really talking to her disrespectfully. And she had listened to my lecture and finally used one of the tools. That's what happens, you know it's the right thing to do, and then you finally use it, you're just like, yes! So this was her yes moment. And she said, she just kind of stopped him, can you do me a favor? And he's like, oh yeah, what? Can you stop talking down to me?
Nice.
I'm just trying to help. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And just kind of backtracked. And he never did it again, stopped calling her.
Good.
With all these problems that he, wanted to control her life. She might not have been making the best decisions, but that's not the way to get people to change.
Right, yeah.
All right, so step 4, introspective questions. This is for people who are ready. And some people who might not even be severely toxic at all, just not really realizing the effect they're having on other people. Extroverted, a lot of extroverted people are not introspective. And some introverted people are so stuck in thinking that they don't process how they came across. So both can have problems with this. Okay. Use questions to help a person to introspect and figure out why they're acting abusively toward people. If they answer, because you, then they're not ready. You have to go back to step 2 or 3, okay? They are not ready. They don't even have to answer. When you ask, and the list is going to come up, they don't even have to answer these questions. And that's actually sometimes a really good thing. You stump them with it, and it's not an attack. So if they're ready for it, it's a really great tool. Their eventual change should be enough, okay? So getting the apology, get over it. You know what? Just, you've got somebody trying to change. Maybe they have oppositional defiant disorder. They're not going to tell you, oh yeah, you were right. Yeah. They might. I mean, some people, after they react, afterwards will go, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. Okay. You don't ask a person in 3-year-old tantrum mode to introspect with questions.
Right.
Go to your room,
Probably
Yeah. You send a command out, right?
Yeah. You
got to remember they're acting like a child.
Yeah.
You have to start parenting them, okay? Don't become a sibling who starts, rah, 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 back at them. You wait until they are ready and mature enough to accept the mirror you are holding up to them. I explain that a little bit more. So introspective questions, again, the ones that are underlined, I think there's one. This is a really good one to use. Do you really think acting that way will make me or them want to be around you? Okay. Now, some of these things, they can be done with a little bit of humor. I mean, I've used humor before with that appropriately. That has worked with introspective questions. And it can be very beneficial. But if you're always, and I'm going to talk about that later too, if you're always using humor and you always have to be the one who sets up the, gets them to the point where they are aren't being toxic, that's not healthy. You need to start using these tools to hold up a mirror to them, okay? You shouldn't have to be juggling, the relationship constantly, okay?
I've been in relationships like that, friendship relationships like that, and I found that more or less that statement has really helped that person. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Toxic mother-in-law. Isn't that the best picture? All right. So one thing this picture reminds me of is often toxic people show their toxicity on their face. Or even their depression, anxiety, whatever. It's just so, it's like marked on their face. I don't know this woman. Maybe she's had a rough life. But I've known people who've had this look and they are ornery, So this woman and her husband retired from their jobs and traveled away from their state to go take care of his mother. And for years, this mother-in-law to her would constantly, just in her face, be mean to her, cruel to her, questioning everything she did, just very negative. And so she's around this 24/7 because she's retired, right? And she's taking care of this person. And so she came to the lecture for other reasons to help someone else, and she's like, okay, wow, I really need to use these tools. So she starts using the tool to walk away. I'm just going to walk away. I don't want to confront her. She gets really upset, and then her blood pressure goes up. We end up in the hospital, right? So this is like a thing that keeps happening. And she's like, I can't do this to her, so I'm going to walk on eggshells. So she keeps going to her room, and then what's funny is her health gets better, and so she starts going to her room.
Oh, no.
Why are you always in here? You're so introverted. Why do you have to be that way? Just constantly nailing her. And she's like, wow. So what do I do, Christy? So this is somebody that I coached over the last year with this. She's like, I don't know what to do. So I kind of said, can you finally hold up a mirror? You don't want to set boundary 1 and 2 because you're saying her blood pressure goes up. She's manipulating that situation, going into the hospital. How dare you put me in this situation, right? And which is what she's going through. What the effects of are being toxic, and we're going to talk about that during the medical portion of this. She's actually, those are the results of being toxic. Okay. And then we're going to talk about what's happening to her her daughter-in-law, also physically inside herself, that's destroying part of her body. So she just basically says to her one day, she says, after she says some really mean stuff, and they're talking about, her behavior, she says, then why say it if it's mean? She explodes, her blood pressure goes through the roof, just with this simple statement. You are mean for telling me that I'm mean. Okay?
Of course.
That's basically the mentality, all right? How dare you tell me how I should treat you? Okay? How dare you tell me that I should treat you with respect? This is basically what this woman is telling her. She said, at that moment, she said, we are leaving. We gave up our lives for this. We are leaving. We're going back. And to where we lived, we're going to do some other stuff, and you're going to go into a nursing home with your sisters.
Wow.
We've already worked it out. Okay. So she finally, after a year, it came down to it. She tried all the other steps, and this was it. And there's ways to walk away guilt-free. I have a really good thing that helps people to do that.
Good.
Maybe you have discovered that you are a toxic person to someone or to people in general and want to change. Okay, we're going to move more quickly through a lot of these next slides. The smaller information, again, you can read on the email that you're going to get. If you are being aggressive with someone, ask yourself the introspective questions in step 4. Instead of asking them the questions, you're asking yourself the questions, but replace the you with I. Why do I do this? Change the entire sentence context toward discovering your own intentions and beliefs about yourself and others. Toxic behavior in the professional and business world. Okay, at this moment, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll get back to you and start discussing the business world.